Okay, now that we've created the sheet for the people to fill out, now we need to edit our data sheet on the back end and make some graphs with it for this authorization tracker. So you can see I'm in the spreadsheet called authorization responses. You can see it's been filled out twice. On May 1st, Paul did direct therapy from 8 to 9:30 for 3 units. On 5/11, Frank did supervision from 10 to 11 for 2 units. So now we need to add in a place for you to enter in all the authorization information. So what we're going to do is scroll all the way to the bottom here. In the bottom left, see this little plus sign to add a sheet, because I want to enter this in another sheet just to make it nice and clean and easy to read. So I'll add a sheet. So see, I have form responses and I have sheet 2. So let's rename sheet 2 by clicking on the little triangle next to sheet 2 and clicking rename. And we're going to name this auth info. Okay? So we don't need a ton of information here. We need auth start date, auth end date, and let me just go down. I'm going to say total units. And now, so I want to put the total units in for direct therapy. No, I think it went, let's go the same order. Supervision, assessment, and meetings. So those are the 6 pieces of information that staff are going to need to enter when they set up a new auth tracker to use this. So let's make this bigger. Let's bump these out so they fit nicely. Let's put some a little bit anal about these things. Let's shade the background of these so it really stands out where you're supposed to type. Again, you don't have to do any of this. This is my own craziness. I don't like that these aren't all centered. Okay, let's put some borders on these boxes. All right, so now we have a somewhat nice looking. If it were something I was really doing for long term, I would make this look a lot nicer. But it's not really necessary that it looks that nice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, not off screen, eventually I'll move it off screen, but I'm going to put a few more pieces of information in here. So I need to know total units used for each one of these things. So I'm actually just going to copy this and paste it over here. I could have just typed that. So now I need to find a way for the computer to add all of that up. I need it to tell me goal units used. We're going to do this. We'll figure this out. I'm just going to make these so I can see it. Actually, these don't need to be that big. So I'll move the font down to 12 for that. And you do a little trick here to automatically resize these columns. If I hover over the edge here and I get the little right arrow, I double click it, it'll resize them for me nicely. So I need a way to figure out the goal, the total units used, and the goal units used in units, and we'll also figure it out as percentage of all of the units. So we'll go back to that. I need to, so let's do this, sorry, let's do this one first. Let's do this total units used. So what I'm going to do here is just do equals sum, parentheses. So you can see it's putting a formula telling you need to tell it where to look now. So what I'm going to do is just go to click on my form responses tab down here. Click on this entire column here for direct therapy, right? That's this one right here. And hit enter. I should get 3. So this is, if you remember when we set up the sheet, the reason why we put all those on different pages so they're nicely in columns there. So now for supervision equals sum, parentheses, click on form responses, Scroll over, I know the second one was supervision. Clicking by the gray next to the letter K, so I get the whole column. Hit enter. It's important you select the whole column and not just what's been put in so far, because that way it'll keep adding as you go forward. Assessment equals sum, parentheses, here. I just know that it's the next one. I probably could have named that as assessment units. I'll do the same thing for meetings. It's the last one. Enter. So now you can see it's figured out the total units used. So I'm actually going to change this. So now I want to know total units used. I've done that. Okay. So I do want to next say goal units used. Right? So I want to know how many should you use for the whole time? So how many should you be used? How many should you have used so far? To do that, I need to figure out what today is. Right? I know the auth date, I know the auth end date, and the auth start date. So let's figure out first, how long is this auth? So how do we do that? Pretty simple. We just type equals, do the end date minus the start date, and hit enter. So this auth is 0 days long. The reason it's 0 days long is I haven't put anything in here yet. If it went from 5/1 to 5/15, that's 14 days. But it's really not, right? That's really 15 days that I had. So all you really have to do here is go back into this one, and it's B2, this one here, minus B1 plus 1. So now it's 15 days. If this was 5/30, it's 30 days. If this was 10/22, it's 175 days long. So now we figured out how many days long the authorization is. Next, we want to figure out what's today. What's today's date? The way you do that is you type equals, start parentheses, end parentheses, and the word today. And hit enter. I always get this wrong, whether it's today and then the parentheses or the other way around. Okay, so let's do that again. I always forget where it goes today and then the parentheses or parentheses and today. But it's equals, parentheses, today. Nope, I got it wrong again. We just did it a second ago. It's today and parentheses. Now it will tell you today's date. We can use that to figure out one more thing. How many days have gone by in the auth? Okay, so now I want to know how many days have gone by. I'm going to do equals today minus start date plus 1. So 26 days. So let's look at this. Let's recap what we did here. We had them enter a start date and an end date. We had it calculate this is 175 days long by doing start date minus end date. End date minus start date plus 1. We had figured out today's date by typing equals today, start parentheses, end parentheses. Now that'll keep updating. So tomorrow that'll say 5/27. The next day it'll say 5/28. And we did another calculation of how many days have gone by in the auth by doing today minus start date plus 1. Okay, so we're getting there. Starting to see how many days have gone by. So, goal units used so far. So let's do one more thing here. Units to use per day. Ignore my horrible typos here. It really doesn't matter with my capitalization. No one's going to look at this but you. So now we want to say, okay, let's say we got 1,000 units for this, 200 units of this, 8 units of that, and 20 units of that. I'm just making up random numbers. So now we know this auth is 175 days long by looking up here. So let's do this. And we know we have 1,000 units. So we'll do equals 1,000 divided by, just type in that slash there, 175, enter. So you should use 5.71 units per day of direct therapy to stay on pace. This one I'll do equals 200 divided by, click up here. I'm not going to type in 175 because I want it, if these things change later, I want it to automatically do that. I'm going to automatically adjust. So we should use 1.14 of supervision per day equals assessment total units divided by the length of the auth equals meeting units divided by the length of the auth. Okay, so now we've got how many units we've used total right here. We've got how many we've used per day right here. We can use, and we also know how many days have gone by. We can use that to figure out how many units you should have used. You're probably figuring this out already. Here I'm going to do equals the units I should use per day times, just put the asterisk, the one above the 8 there. How many days have gone by? So I should have used 148.5714286 units. I'm a little behind. Equals target per day times how many I should use. Go faster. All right. So now we have how many units we should have used versus what the target is. Now, if you remember the original sample I showed you, we put them all on one graph as a percentage of units used. I kind of like that better. It's easier to look at on one graph. If you want just raw numbers of units, you're done. You can just graph this. I'm going to actually put something down below called percent used. Let's say percent used actual, percent used goal. I'll write these in again here: direct therapy, supervision, assessment, and meetings. So I'm just going to fill in this table here. So this is going to percent used actual. So what I'm going to do is just do equals 3, what I've actually used, divided by that total of 1,000. So I've used that. Equals the one I've actually used for supervision, divided by the actual. There you go. Equals assessment divided by actual equals used divided by total. There we go. Same thing here. Equals the goal divided by total. Equals goal divided by total equals goal divided by total. There's actually some tricks you could do to do this faster, but try not to get too tricky. Okay, so those aren't actually formatted as percentages. So the last thing I want to do on this sheet is just select this whole section here, format number as a percent, and I actually just want a whole number. Don't mess with these 0.86s, 0.3s. So I'm going to do one more thing, format number, and actually I have a saved one there. I could just click it, but I'm going to do custom number format. So I went format number, all the way down more formats, all the way down custom number format, And you see right now it's saying 0.00%. If I just delete this out and just make it 0% and I apply it, now it's just rounding them all off. So you undo it, redo it. So that's just a little bit cleaner for me. Now I have the numbers that I wanted. It's really not that hard. We did it pretty quickly with me talking. I could have done this much faster if I was just doing it. So now what we're going to do is select this section here, insert, chart. It's going to say it's going to make something like this for us. And that's not at all what we want. So let's go to chart types. We want this kind right here. There we go. So now I did a combination of a bar and a line graph all in one. You can see I'm way off, but we knew that from the table. So let's just go and customize this a little bit. We'll change the table to auth tracking percent versus actual. We'll keep that legend, but I actually want to move it to the bottom. This is looking pretty good. I don't really need to change a ton. Maybe I'll take the bold off of the title because I just personally don't like things in bold. Maybe I'll make that a little bigger. Not really need an Arial font either, so I'll change that. Horizontal. Nothing really to do there. It looks pretty good. Everything looks fine. Let's go to vertical. Get rid of the italics, something like that. Make that a little bigger so it's easier to read. Let's make the minimum 0 and the maximum 100 since it's a percentage. Whoa, minimum not 100, minimum 1. There it goes up to 100%. It's looking pretty good. Let's go down here. Let's make these grid lines white just so I don't have to look at them. On the series, let's add some data labels, put the value in there. That looks pretty good. I think I like it. That's pretty much all I wanted to do in there. So I'll insert that chart. Go over here where I put it. Personally, I like my graphs to be on their own page, so I'll click this triangle up at the top right. Say move to its own sheet. And we're done. We did it. Again, if you haven't learned yet, I am like most of you probably are. Want my graphs to be perfect, so let's use up all the space. So what I did is I just clicked into the main area of the chart, clicked move and resize, move to the edge, and I can just drag it over, drag it down, drag it over a little bit. So you know what, let's make these numbers a little bigger just by clicking them, or not these numbers, these labels. A little better, let's make this a little bigger. And that is it. Now we've made this graph to track it. So let's go back and test it. Let's preview it. Let's fill it out again. So let's say on May 26th today, Kelly did direct therapy from let's go from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. I just want to do, you wouldn't have that long of a session, but I just want to make a point here. We'll do 12 units because they're 30-minute units. I'll hit submit. It says good. Response has been recorded. So get that graph. All right, we're up to 2%. Let me actually put something in for assessment and make it really big because we didn't have a lot of units for that. So let's go here. Let's fill it out again. We'll say on May 11th, Jason did assessment. And we'll give him, it's got to be between 1 and 8. So let's say it was from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for 8 units. Hit submit. There it is, 100% of assessment is used. So you can see this is tracking as you go. It's automatically updating for you. And you'll also, I can't really demonstrate it unless I override the formula, which I actually will do in a second. But since today is May 26th, I should have used 15% of each of the units in there. We can go back into this sheet here. This is going to break my formula, but I could say let's pretend today is July 29th. You can see it bump that line up to 51%. You don't want to do that. You actually want to leave it back as what it was, which was just equals today. And now tomorrow it'll bump up. The next day it'll bump up. The next day it'll bump up. So that is how we build an authorization tracker.